Today, I'm going to share a very unique principle as touching your mindset. This has nothing to do with manifestation, the law of attraction, and all of those concepts, as wonderful as they are. So, buckle up. What I'm about to share is a unique perspective as touching your mindset, and your mindset determines the level of wealth and abundance you control. This is not just positive thinking. This is not limited to affirmations. This is not faith necessarily, but a very unique perspective on your mindset. In the book of Genesis, remember the story of Nimrod Kush, those guys who wanted to build a tower that would reach the heaven. When Kush began working on their mind, proposing that possibility that let us build a tower that would reach the heavens. If you look at it from God's standpoint, the Bible says, and God came down to see the tower which the children of men have built. Have built. They didn't start anything physically, but from the realm of God, they had already completed this tower. He also left a comment, and nothing would be restrained from them, which they have. Dear CEO, build that business here. It means once you build something, once you conceive a thought, once you build it in the realm of mind, I want you to picture God coming to attest to the fact that it has already been built. As a wise man famously pointed, in fact, I will take credit for this quote. Once the mind has been stretched by an idea, it can never return to its original dimension. Once you've conceived an idea of success, it's impossible for you to let that idea go. Once you've seen yourself as a success, once you've started a business you truly believe will profit you in some way, it's impossible for you to let that idea go. Yes, you might fail. Yes, you might become fatigue in pursuing that goal. Yes, you might become lazy. Yes, you might become discouraged. But as a consequence, at the end of every single thing you do, yes, you might stop being consistent or you might embrace inconsistency. You go today, off tomorrow in that progressive manner. But one thing I know is this: you can never completely quit. It would always haunt you. It's impossible for you to start a business, fail in that business, give up, and revert to your former state. Yes, you might take the actions of your previous state, but the mindset of that entrepreneurial venture is residue within you. It's only a matter of months before you begin another business. And I don't care how many failures it takes you to remain consistent or to find a business of which you now say, you know what, I've done 15 businesses, all have failed. This is the 16th one. If it's going to fail, I'm going to see it through the end. And when that business doesn't fail, it becomes or it begins another path, another trajectory for you as touching life and destiny. CEO, build that business here, build that entrepreneurial venture here, build that whatever it is, whatever venture that is scriptural, first build it in your mind, and you will see that the universe would conspire to work in your favor. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying every single thing you do at the initial stages will begin to yield fruits. Are there cases like that? Of course they are. But in general, it's most likely you're going to fail. Imagine this analogy. You shoot hoops for the first time and you score 3 points. It's most likely you're going to leave the court with your dignity. If you try to repeat that activity it's most likely you're going to fail. So we all know this intrinsically that once you start something for the first time and it doesn't profit, or once you start something for the first time, the chances of failure are pretty high. Yes, when you fail in your first business, second business, you cry your eyes out. It's very funny because humans, again, I wanted to say we as humans, but you humans, you are very fond of embracing logical concepts. But when it comes time to apply that logic, especially to your life, you crumble. Leave that girl, your body is going through a heartbreak or a breakup. Leave that girl, there are tons of other females. Faced with the same situation, you cry your eyes out. Where's the advice? Where's the stoicism? Where's the discipline? Exactly. What I want every single one of you to grasp is that you should build every single thing in your mind. Once you build it in your mind, whether it's destroyed physically, it can always be regained. If you look at an architectural plan, say for this house, that result, as long as you have the blueprint, can be replicated anywhere as long as there's fertile soil. And your fertile soil is your mind. Your mind is your soil. So if you were kidnapped miles away from home, you will be put in the same house and you truly believe you are still in the same town, but it's the same blueprint. This is something witchcraft or witches and occultists understand perfectly. The law of habitat. It states you have to build a habitat that makes the spirits comfort. Wait, let me rephrase that. You have to build a habitat, you have to build an environment that makes the spirit comfortable such that it can't differentiate between his house and yours. It is evident why herbalists and witches do not stay in furnished apartments. Their ambience is always dirty, human skulls, red apparels, and some kind of idols and carved scary sculptures. The problem with most individuals, and I'm going to digress a little bit, the problem with most individuals is you're waiting for God to do something you can do for yourself. God give me wisdom, God give me wisdom. You can start by going for knowledge because wisdom only finds expression with knowledge. You can be the wisest man on earth. If you can't speak English, you will be limited. You can be the wisest man on earth. If you can't speak the same language, if you do not have the sufficient vocabularies to express yourself, maybe you're called into the teaching ministry. If you do not have sufficient vocabularies to express yourself or the requisite level of story that can attest to the fact you've gone through the exact same thing as your clients, as your audience, then there's no resonance. I was speaking to my friend the other day and I said AI is never going to replace the personal development industry because as intelligent as they have no empathy, they have no life stories. When I sit and I advise someone, when I sit and I say do this, here's how I solve the problem, he's susceptible to receive my advice because of the story appended to the solution. I've gone through exactly the same thing. When my business was going under, when the accountant stole, when they hacked the website, this is what I did. This is what I did to correct the situation. Do this. He's more likely to take that advice than from a robot who's been programmed to say XYZ. This was recently tried in a gym where they hired robots as trainers. I can't recall what company started that movement, but the whole business model was to program robots to become personal trainers, and it failed woefully. Why is this the case? Because individuals will get angry and the robot is telling them to push one more rep, one more rep. You're just a fucking robot programmed to say this. Who are you to try and convince me I can push through this pain? You can't. And even if you say the exact same things as a human coach, it wouldn't resonate. Warren Buffett's the legendary sage of Omaha, I believe. I don't want to get the pronunciation wrong, but the legendary sage of Omaha, legendary investor, worth hundreds of billions. If you sit and give this advice, dollar cost average, invest $100 into the S&P 500, and before retirement, you will become a millionaire. Alright, that's sound advice. Every single person would sit and take notes. It's the same advice a college professor gives, and yet every single person ignores him. Why is this the case? Because one has results against its counterparts. Humans gravitate towards results, not advice. The same thing I'm saying now is what I've said previously, perhaps maybe with a little added vocabulary, personal anecdotes, but the distinguishing factor is results. The results this philosophy has produced. Dear businessman, build your business here. Stop waiting for people to give you permission to start. Stop waiting for something external before you start. I'm waiting for my uncle to give us funds for the business before I start drafting the plan. My friend, you can start writing something. You can start gaining knowledge as you await capital. In fact, the mental process of constructing your business in your mind would attract the capital faster. Mindset. Mindset. Nobody, no great man started with tools. Every single great man started with the hands they were dealt with. Every single great man didn't wait for capital before they began. Jobs never waited capital. Zuckerberg started coding from scratch. And if you are like me, where in Africa there's no access to capital, there is no premier establishment that will give you a mortgage. Not because they're necessarily wicked, but there's no a congruent database such that they can flag your portfolio if things go south. There is no congruent database such that they can track you if you decide not to deliver. There's no congruent database that can find you even if you go down to the earth of earth. You can start drafting a business plan. You can start by designing a logo. Yes, it is not much, but those are acts, steps of faith, acts of faith. The Bible says, faith without work is dead. So if you are trusting God, if you are truly believing for something, if you truly believe that one day you get XYZ, you need to start moving in that direction. People don't expect 100% results. They expect 100% effort. If you say you're going to China, we must see you in China Road. If we see you in New York, then there's a divergence. We get angry because you're going against what you said. Again, no businessman, no great man started by waiting for something. We all started. No great businessman started with capital, but the congruent thread woven across the fabric of our stories is we started. For someone, this is your word. This is all you came to hear. Start, 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 start. More tools will be found along the way. We do not see those tools at the beginning stages, but somewhere along the journey, they will be filtered and found. You cannot find those tools without traversing. You cannot find those tools without moving. King Baldwin said, life is like chess. Any move you make can be your end. Do anything except remain where you started, and you can't be sure of your end. A king may move a man, a father may claim a son, but that man can move himself. Remember, howsoever you are played, or by whom, your soul is for your keeping. Remember that. Start. I recall a story. This was in high school. I was punished for some malicious act. There's something I did. I wasn't supposed to do it. As a consequence, my footwears, the both of them were seized. We all have this staff that is feared, the most feared staff in the whole of the school. Fortunately, that was the kind of person I was dealing with. Alright, friend, from here to here, this is the portion I've allocated. I went to my two closest friends at the time. Hello, this is what happened. Come help me cut grass. They all gave excuses. Excuses in the similitude. Remember that story when Jesus sent, not Jesus, there was a master who had a wedding. He sent his slaves to invite all of his friends. One gave the excuse, I just got married. The other said, my crops are yielding fruit. It's time to go pluck them. I must excuse myself. The other said, XYZ. In summary, they all gave excuses that absconded them or absented them. So every single person I narrated the story gave excuses. 2 days become three, three become four, 5, 6, a week without footwear. I got angry, picked up a cutlass, and began work. But something remarkable happened after 2 hours. Passerbys would come along. What happened? Narrate the story while we are cutting the grass. It became like an activity. Soon enough, the whole school helped me complete that project. And within 2, 3 hours, we are done with that plot of land. The moral of the story, something I learned is heaven helps those who help themselves. This principle is not limited to God. Humans would help you as long as you are willing to help yourself. Hard work is what attracts favor. If you see someone working as hard as possible, not only would it motivate you to work harder, it prompts favor, it prompts interest. You will do your best to aid that individual. For instance, there was a guy in my former apartment. By 6 a.m., he's up. He has a farm, he runs a poultry, he runs XYZ. So he has all these various businesses that requires manual labor. As a neighbor, observant as hell, I see how hard he works on various businesses. When I had visitors, contacted the guy, bought a lot from his poetry. Not necessarily because I wanted to entertain them or I needed his services, but as an encouragement. Young man, I see your effort. I see every single thing you're giving as touching life and success. This is an encouragement to show you your efforts do not go in vain. Hard work attracts favor, not just from God, but from men. Humans are only willing to help you as long as they see you're hardworking and you're willing to learn. But as long as you stand in pride, they will make sure to frustrate your effort until you learn the lesson. Give you one key to broadening your horizon. The first key is exposure. Exposure to materials, exposure to contents. So exposure, once you're exposed, it broadens your horizon. Like the analogy I gave, that once an event, once a situation or a mind expanded by an idea, it would never return to its original dimension. And I truly mean this. I remember when I entered an aircraft for the first time, and by God's grace, inshallah, I swear that I am never going to go back. Everybody's complaining about the economy, but the experience alone challenged my mindset beyond measures. Mindset, exposure, exposure to materials, reading books, listening to men who have results. Let them talk to you, let you hear them speak. Submit yourself at their feet, and you'll be fine. For the sake of time, we'll end it here. As always, my friends, pleasure speaking to you. I'll see you in the next one.